As the light up, I slip through you. Cover up the blank spots. Hit me on the head.
Hello and welcome. I'm Sarah Robinson, and I'm a board member of the Champlain Housing Trust. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's kind of appropriate that we would open with a song from the Talking Heads, as we've all been seeing a lot of talking heads on Zoom meetings lately and in the lead up to last week's election. The faces and smiles that you just saw are just some of the nearly 6,000 residents that have safe and decent homes, thanks to the incredible work of this amazing organization. And I thank you for your past and future support of our mission that makes all of that possible. We have a great event in store for you today, but before we get to it, just a few things. First, we've never done this before, so bear with us. We hope to get all the technology right, and I have faith that we will. Second, we have over 180 friends with us today. We're holding off on using the chat so that attendees and speakers can focus on the presentation. And third, and perhaps most importantly, we can't control the volume on your computer. We've tried our best to keep our settings even between presenters, but you may need to adjust your volume up or down between segments. Finally, we have a wonderful program for you today. First up will be Fran Stoddard facilitating a discussion with Brenda Torpy and Michael Monty. Then we'll hear from a current CHT resident about her story. And I'll be back at the end with my husband Colin to explain how CHT changed our lives and why we give. Thanks again for joining us today, and I'm going to hand it off to you, Fran.
Right. Thank you so much, Sarah. And good afternoon to all. It is wonderful to join you at the Champlain Housing Trust's virtual luncheon, and it is my pleasure to share the screen today with the current CEO, the amazing Brenda Torpy, and also Michael Monty, who is the current Chief Operating and Finance Officer for CHT, which you'll hear sometimes, Champlain Housing Trust, and will take over from Brenda as CEO in January. So Brenda, it's likely that most on this luncheon Zoom already know the Champlain Housing Trust, but for those who may not know much about you and your organization, can you give us a snapshot of CHT?
Sure, Fran, and thanks for doing this. Hi, I'm Mike. Champlain Housing Trust has a vision, and that's that every community in our region would have homes for everybody in the community, including those who are vulnerable and lower wage workers. And to that end, and we keep them permanently affordable. And right now we have 2,400 rentals of all kinds, some with service, mostly regular apartments. We also have 650 homes under stewardship for our shared equity portfolio. And what makes all of this really work is that we have a wide range of services for people, from social work and support service coordination, through a lot of financial education and counseling and community building activities that help families, children, and seniors have a better quality of life.
Fantastic. Yeah, you just cover the gamut. So Brenda, you're moving on after founding this organization back in 1984, leading it for 30 years. And you've been working on secession for a little while, and I'm so impressed at how seamless it seems to be going. So tell us about that transition.
I guess this is a time when people appreciate seamless transitions. This work has been the honor of my life, and I've enjoyed every single minute of it. And I'm also very excited to be leaving at a time when I know the organization is strong and ready. We worked, as you said, Fran, on transition for some time, just as part of our commitment to sustainability and the stewardship of our homes and services. So we're ready. And I have to say that when COVID first hit, the pandemic hit, we were well into my year of transition. And I did pause, but just for a few seconds, because clearly the response from top to bottom from the organization, the board staff, and the whole team under Michael's leadership was so strong and responsive. I knew, kind of proved my case, we're good to go. And right up front, if I could, Fran, I want to take a minute to talk about Michael's leadership, because in his position here, heading up finance, operations, and our most critical or big complex developments, Michael has already contributed enormously to our mission. And those activities show how two things about Michael that are not qualities you often find in the one person. Michael is a visionary, he's creative, and he can visualize how things should be or what we could make different. And then he also has a detailed mind to put all the pieces in place so that, and this is really great for the team, right? To get that step by step to be successful. Now, Champlain Housing Trust was born in innovation. It took a lot of courage for us to stand up a whole new form of home ownership, and that succeeded. And Michael is completely in that tradition that he can take the big leaps and, as we see, make them successful and sustainable. The last thing is probably the most important for me, is values. Michael and I were both there at the founding of this organization and working with those activists who created us. And I see that, like me, for Michael, this is much more than a job. It's much more than a job. And I think that's where his drive comes from, and his commitment. It's just a commitment to social justice. So in all, I feel that we have in Michael the best of CHT and the best person to lead the organization forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brenda. And that's a good segue into what I think a lot of people are curious about. As you said, you took maybe a breath, a moment, but that was it, as COVID came, and you guys just really were right there. So Michael, in this past 8 months of COVID, how did CHT respond?
Well, hi, Fran and Brenda. Thank you for those kind words. It's still sometimes hard to hear them, but it's good to hear them. So I'm really humbled and grateful to the board to appoint me as director, as CEO. I look forward to the challenge. I think it's going to be an exciting bunch of years ahead of us, and I'm very grateful and very humbled by all of that. And following Brenda in her footsteps, that's just an amazing thing to do. She's been a leader in affordable housing since the early 80s, both in Burlington and Vermont, and frankly, the nation and the world. People look to Brenda to speak to her about what it is that we do at Champlain Housing Trust to bring that affordable housing model throughout the world. And that's humbled to be in her footsteps, frankly. And I'm looking forward to really sort of breaking out of my role as a CEO, CFO type, into getting to know our supporters better and to do some more work and meeting all of you. Let me talk a little bit about the pandemic and what we did. Most of, if not all of our workers are essential. And we have 100 staff. And when the pandemic hit, we knew we needed to make sure that they were safe and that they were supported. So we immediately began to stagger work schedules. We purchased and configured equipment like everyone else for them to be able to work at home. We got new software. We provided extra pay to people who are going to be in the field on a regular basis, and sort of make sure that they were 100% supported as they did their work. Staff were amazing. All of them raised their hands when they were asked to do things. And all of them worked far outside of their typical job descriptions. you know, during this time, we not only didn't lay anyone off because they were needed, we actually hired a dozen or so workers to take on some even greater responsibilities that we were taking on during the pandemic.
So that's a critical response as an employer. And how did it affect the delivery of your mission, Michael?
Well, we immediately, you know, began to need to communicate to our residents on a regular basis about what we were doing, what they needed to do in order to be safe. We began to, you know, we stayed evictions before it became a requirement. We said no when it's going to be, if housing is healthcare and we're being told that you have to stay at home, we had to make sure that everybody had the home. So we turned on our creative juices and began to have conversations again with other nonprofit organizations, the Vermont Department of Health, the State of Vermont Medical Center, and started talking about what is it that we can do here at CHT in order to continue to support sort of the work that needed to be done. And we transformed Harbor Place to a COVID and isolation quarantine facility for the whole state of Vermont. And as of last night, 150 people have been served by that COVID and isolation facility. And that's, there are 17 people going to be there tonight. It continues, the pandemic continues in terms of our work and our support. Again, we met with folks on a regular basis. We Zoomed every day with people. We communicated every evening with folks. And, we made sure that the 2,000 people who are homeless in Vermont were quickly put into motels and had a safe place to be. In all of Vermont, there was only one confirmed homeless person who tested positive. Might be two, but very small number. Boston had 1/3 of its homeless population that tested positive.
Wow.
We had one or two. We did a lot right. No one who was homeless died from COVID. So that's a great accomplishment and much, much different than most any other part of the United States.
It's really a remarkable record, and it's clear that without a home, Vermont's homeless would have been so much more at risk for catching the virus. And of course, the more people with the virus, the more all of us are at risk also. So what you did was important in a really large way. And Brenda, why don't you continue with that real connection between health and housing?
Well, I think it's, you know, we always make that connection ourselves because we see it every day, helping people every day. And we know in our own homes how important they are to us in that way. So, but I think it's never been more obvious at the community level, how the importance of housing and health and how they go together. And so our first stop, some of the things Michael described is our first stop, we had to respond to the people in our homes who were experiencing all kinds of new challenges and stresses themselves, right? And then talking to our partners, we looked at where those gaps were. At one point, Michael, you bought a van for the community health centers to be able to start their mobile testing right away. They couldn't get the vehicle. And then we started looking around at the next need, and Michael alluded to that. There was temporary solutions to homelessness, but what were we going to do permanently to address that health and housing need? And so then, Mike, you went shopping for motels.
Yeah. So Michael, tell us about why bringing motels into your portfolio was important and is important at this time, what those facilities are.
We found motels as a good sort of opportunity for us to be able to convert into permanent housing. And so we sort of began to do that. But before, it's important that that CHT provided leadership on the state level to really make sure that the resources that were coming to the state from federal relief programs covered a variety of housing needs of Vermonters. So even though as we went off and did a few things, we made sure there was a back rent and mortgage program that was set up for residents throughout the state of Vermont. We supported a rental rehab program, additional support for case management services. We advocated for money to make sure that the shelters were resilient in terms of being able to support and help people. And again, the part that we sort of can do well is we help create funds to permanently house people who are homeless. So the things that we did in terms of going out and shopping is we purchased one motel, then we converted to 68 apartments. And that's happening right now. People are moving in right now. Again, during the pandemic, we were out shopping and signing agreements and getting things ready. And as the money became available, we hit the ground running and bought the properties and have been renovating the properties and then moving people in right now. We purchased another motel to serve and expand shelters for steps and domestic violence. There are many of the people in the homeless system wind up being victims of domestic violence. And so we've been working with steps now for a while to get them a new location. And we were able to do that with the purchase of a motel and provide them with 21 suites for individuals and families who are facing domestic violence. So we're very happy and very glad with our agreement with them on this. And then a third motel we purchased, we're going to buy it tomorrow on Veterans Day. And that is essentially a new quarantine and isolation facility for the state of Vermont. And we've actually already have been renting that motel for the last month. Harbor Place is now filled with folks who are simply homeless. And we're operating a quarantine isolation facility separately from Harbor Place, where it started during the pandemic and the resource that was needed, we had. And now we'll have a separate facility just for that. So that's where we've been busy. It's been a pretty busy few months here.
I guess you've been busy and ready for what looks to be another surge at the moment. So, wow, it's enough to make your head spin. And Brenda, Champlain Housing Trust is doing all this while you are continuing your regular work.
Yeah, well, that goes, I think, to our culture. Michael alluded early on with the team that to tackle big things, but we know, there are folks, thousands of folks living in our homes, counting on us day to day for their health and well-being and safety. And so we can never take our eye off the ball. That's 24/7. So even as we did this, we were looking at what are the needs of the folks in our homes, what's different. Of course, food, childcare, economic issues, a lot of stresses on our folks. And so we have adapted every single service and program. And again, as Michael mentioned, we've added social workers, not only for the folks in our properties, but also Housing Now, new folks from homelessness. We wanted to be sure we had the right supports in place for everyone.
And so how does this all tie back to Champlain Housing Trust's overall work and its ongoing efforts to reach its vision?
Yeah, I think there are two main things that have been a focus for us strategically that, of course, now we need to double down on. And the first is our work to address homelessness. And over the last few years, we've really leaned into that. And over 18% of our portfolio of rentals are people who had experienced homelessness and now have a permanent home and the supports they need from us. And this year, with these funds and new homes, we're adding 80 homes. So that is just a great leap and out of a bad circumstance, but permanent solution. And then also, of course, we are looking at really improving our response to the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. These communities have been a focus for us. I'm proud to say in our last 4 years of homeownership, 25% of our home buyers have been people of color. But that is something we can improve on in that program. And in addition to that, homeownership side, the board and staff all together, this is an organization-wide commitment. We're looking at every program and every service and making sure that we're doing the best we can and certainly eliminating any barriers that we identify and really hoping to improve our performance there.
Fantastic. And Michael, there's a particular focus right now in Winooski. Can you talk about that for people of color?
Sure. I mean, we're now looking at with the city of Winooski, looking at some land that is on Mallett's Bay Avenue to be able to create some homeownership opportunities. And we'll reach out to the community of folks who we know who are in Winooski, who are people of color. Many of them are new Americans, but also just sort of established families who have been in Vermont for a long time, and just sort of create some affirmative work to make sure that these folks have an opportunity to buy a home in Winooski. Home ownership in Winooski is pretty important.
Yeah, Awesome. And so, Michael, as you look forward, in addition to these important initiatives that you've introduced us to, what's on the horizon for CHT and housing in general in Vermont?
Well, let me just also say before I start that during the pandemic, we moved in 200 people. So we're going to continue to do that. We have a decent number of homes for sale. We have a decent number of homes for rent on a regular basis. And we've got to continue to sort of make sure that people have access to what we have. And Brenda alluded to that, but there's still a huge gap between what people earn and what housing costs in the region. It hasn't gotten any better. Certainly didn't get better during the pandemic. There was not a falling out of housing costs. If anything, there's been an increase in housing costs. So we need to produce more housing at a faster rate, and we're doing all that we can on that front. We just opened up, and we will be leasing up 30 new apartments in St. Albans, in downtown St. Albans, working with the city of St. Albans. And so that is starting up, and that we'll lease that up pretty quickly. And then we have another 80 or so apartments that are sort of in the pipeline for next year, in addition to what we're bringing on this fall, that we're looking forward to. But we need resources for that. We need capital resources at the state level, sort of, and at the federal level. Secondly, probably a thing that we're really leaning into, and Brenda really talked about this as well, is we really need to ramp up our services. Lots of great service organizations exist in the community right now. We work in partnership with all of them, but there are times when we need to be able to be there, and we need to be able to respond, and we can respond quicker and do certain kinds of things that some of our partners can't. So we've hired additional social workers, and we are bringing more focus to our community building staff, and we want to make sure people are able to succeed in this uncertain world. And that is making sure that, the last thing we do is evict somebody. The first thing we do is provide them with support and assistance to be successful. We're reaching out to our residents this month in a survey to hear exactly what their gaps or opportunities may be. We have an idea what they are, but we know there's more that we can do, and we're committed to stepping into this work more intentionally over the next year or two.
Awesome. Well, Brenda, clearly CHT will be in good hands, continue to be in good hands.
Yep.
But I want to give you the last word here before we move on to Kate's story. What is it, your story is remarkable. What is it about housing that has made it your life's work?
Friend, for my folks, being able to build a house and become homeowners and in that way join the middle class is the pride of their life, aside from us wonderful children, of course. But, that was so important to them, a sense of belonging and pride that they passed on to us. And they were hardworking people. And also with that pride was also a lot of anxiety about falling back into poverty. And what I see today and have seen in my work is that working people today, as Michael said, have a much harder time affording a home. Much harder time, even a basic rental. And that's just wrong. Housing is a basic need for each and every one of us. And it's a societal responsibility to make sure that everybody has access to just that basic security and dignity. It's a matter of just social justice. So I'm going to continue to do this work, especially advancing this model we have developed in Vermont that takes responsibility for keeping homes affordable and keeping that access in every community to all who need it. It's there's just a lot of work to do still. That arc of the moral universe is really and truly long, sometimes frustratingly long. But every time we lift someone out of homelessness, that's a victory. Every time we preserve a home and that opportunity for the future generation, that's a victory. And that keeps me going. These are victories like Kate's going to tell you about her own victory in achieving housing. And I would like you to join me in welcoming her. Kate Royce Blaine, if you please want to join us. Kate has very generously set aside the time today to come and share her story with you. So thanks, Kate.
And just before, I just want to thank Brenda and Michael. And Brenda, I know you're going to continue to do great things in this field. And Kate, it's wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. So
Guys.
I'm Kate Price, and I'm a resident of Champlain Housing's Bright Street Co-op. On June 12th of 2019, my then 5-year-old daughter Molly and I fled our home from domestic violence. I had never been in that situation before, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. So I ended up at Economic Services, and they placed me at Harbor Place and assured me that I'd have a place to sleep that night and that it'd be okay. I quickly found out that you are given 84 days paid for by the state when you become homeless per year. And I quickly found out that finding affordable housing in 84 days is really, really difficult. There's extensive wait lists, like some wait lists are closed because of the sheer number of people on the lists that they just can't accept more applicants. They do tell you it would be like at least 6 months before you might move on to the next step. On my 83rd day, I was lucky enough that I was given a room at a family shelter. And when I got there, I was provided the help of a housing advocate, which helped me attain a family unification voucher that I could use to move into my own home. I then discovered the co-ops that Champlain Housing Trust has created and just knew it was something I wanted to be a part of. Like it's a revolutionary idea, really. Co-ops are incredible. So I had contacted them and they had 4 2-bedrooms available, which is what I was qualified for, but I was number 5 on the list. And unfortunately, those units were taken. However, later on, a couple days later, rather, a Champlain Housing Trust employee reached out to me and said that she was going to contact the issuing agency of my voucher and see if they could make it work because they had a 3-bedroom available. You know, this woman didn't know me, and considering the need for affordable housing, I have no doubt that she was a very busy woman, but she took the time for me and she went way above and beyond anything I ever expected her to do to get me a home. Champlain Housing Trust is composed of people just like her. They have an extreme dedication to people and unmatched compassion. From Harbor Place to the Bright Street Co-op, they've saved me. And when they asked me to participate today, I had told them that I thought they saved my life, and I really do believe that. I'm not sure what I would have done without them. It's easy to pass judgment on people who are homeless. I had done it before I was. Then I lived side by side with those people, and I got to hear their stories of homelessness while I was trying to write the ending of my story. And it turns out there's a shocking number of people in Vermont who are considered at risk for homelessness, and renting in Vermont is just not affordable. So organizations such as Champlain Housing Trust are vital to the stability and the access to basic human needs like a safe home. They provided me stability and the opportunity to thrive that I could never thank them enough for. So my daughter and I thank you for supporting Champlain Housing Trust. And I just really want you to know it makes a really big difference.
What an impossible act to follow, an impossible story to follow. Thank you so much, Kate, for sharing your story. It takes such courage. And on behalf of the board, I just want to express our deep, deep gratitude to you. As you described, when you were in crisis, CHT was there with a room at Harbor Place to make sure you and your daughter were out of harm's way. And then CHT was there to help you find a home of your own at the co-op. In fact, CHT has stepped into the void wherever there's been one throughout these past 8 months of the pandemic. As you heard from Brenda and Michael, CHT stepped in to create the state's quarantine and isolation motel at the drop of a hat, and was there for a cause close to my own heart, Steps to End Domestic Violence, as they create a new shelter and space for expanded services. And CHT was there for all of its tenants who have struggled with losing jobs and income over these past many months.
So we know firsthand the powerful impact that the Champlain Housing Trust can have on people's lives. As CHT was there for us when we wanted to put down roots in Vermont and start our own family. You know, we both grew up in Windham County. Vermont's our home, but the reality is it's an expensive place. And it was only through CHT's home ownership program that we were able to buy our first home. You know, in fact, we actually bought our first home the same month my parents, who were in their mid-50s and had been lifelong renters, bought their first home. You know, Thanksgiving is obviously coming up just in a couple weeks, and this year is going to be different for all of us, for everybody. But I always remember that first Thanksgiving that we hosted at our house in Winooski with friends and family. And it's for those reasons that it's this time of year that we always give thanks to the opportunity that the Champlain Housing Trust provided us to have our first home with friends and family.
CHT was there when we needed support and was there for Kate in her time of need and has been there over and over in our community. Especially in these times, it feels really good to know that there are ways we can still be there for each other. And now it's our opportunity to be there together for CHT. Many of you have given generously to CHT in the past, and perhaps you've even made a donation this year. We know that the economic recovery will take longer and be harder for the people that CHT serves. And we're asking for your help to support CHT's programs so that they are there when people need them. We haven't been able to fundraise in the same way this year, so we're counting on your generosity to help us accomplish our work. Please give if you can. There's going to be a link in the chat box shortly, and there'll be one on your screen soon. So please give if you are able. There's the link, I just saw it come up. If possible, consider making your gift a monthly membership. This kind of sustained giving recognizes CHT's ongoing work and maybe even allows you to give a little bit more than you could give at one time. However much you can give or not today, thank you, thank you, thank you for your commitment to CHT's mission and for joining us this hour. Have a wonderful afternoon.
You belong among the wildflowers. You belong in a boat out at sea. Sail away, kill off the hours. You belong somewhere you feel free. Run away, find you a lover. Go away somewhere all bright and new. I have seen no other who compares with you. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong in a boat out at sea. You belong with your love on your arm. You belong somewhere you feel free. Run away, go find a lover. Run away, let your heart be your guide. You deserve the deepest of cover.